Hello everyone. While each student is unique, there are some issues that most students in a first-year composition class will face. In this presentation, I'll define the most common writing errors and provide suggestions for correcting them. Let's get started. Each writer is distinctive in both style and any accompanying errors. For instance, I tend to write long, winding sentences, and I also tend to overuse commas. But the most common writing error I find in Composition 1 classes include the following: run-ons, comma splices, and fragments. Students often describe run-ons as sentences that seem to go on forever. However, that is not a precise enough definition of run-on errors. There are some sentences that are indeed very long, but if they are punctuated correctly, they're not run-ons. Instead, a run-on occurs when two or more independent clauses, or complete sentences, are joined without the appropriate punctuation. The trick is to locate the subject and verb of a sentence. If there are multiple subjects and verbs, then the sentence contains more than one independent clause. To correct a run-on, you can simply place a period between the clauses. This is the easiest and most common correction for a run-on. For the most part, a period is all you need. However, there are other methods for correcting a run-on. A comma plus a coordinated conjunction, for, and, nor, but, or, yet, so, can be used to join independent clauses. Or you can use a semicolon to join the clauses. But I do urge caution with the semicolon. Only use the semicolon when there is a clear relationship between the two clauses' ideas. For the most part, limit semicolons to only one or two per essay. A semicolon plus a transition is another way of joining two independent clauses. When using this construction, do not forget the comma after the transition. And finally, a colon can also join independent clauses. But this usage is even more specific than the semicolon. A colon should only be used when the second clause defines or clarifies something in the first. If this specific type of relationship is not there, do not use the colon. On this slide, I have an example of a run-on sentence followed by some suggested corrections. First, the example. We tried to book tickets for the concert, but it had been canceled. The sentence has two independent clauses. The first is, we tried to book tickets for the concert. There is a subject, we, and a verb, tried. The second clause, it had been canceled, has a new subject, it, and a new verb phrase, had been canceled. Therefore, it is a new sentence. Since both clauses are independent, that is, they can stand alone as complete sentences, not punctuating the clause is incorrect. The simplest way to correct the error is to place a comma after concert, as demonstrated in the first correction. Or you could place a period after concert and erase the conjunction but. The transition in my correction, unfortunately, is unnecessary, but it creates a nice flow between the two sentences. Speaking of transition, the third suggested correction uses a semicolon, a transition, and a comma to join the two clauses. These corrections are not the only ways to correct the run-on. They are merely three suggestions. Use whichever method works best for the sentence's idea. Comma splices are very similar to run-ons. In fact, there is only one thing that differentiates them: the comma. A comma is not strong enough to join two independent clauses by itself. It needs some help, or it needs to be replaced by a stronger punctuation mark. The corrections, likewise, are similar to how to correct a run-on. The simplest corrections involve either replacing the comma with a period or adding a coordinating conjunction after the comma. Remember, each of the coordinating conjunctions, for, and, nor, but, or, yet, so, indicate a specific relationship between the two clauses it's connecting. Be sure to use them precisely, otherwise you are likely to confuse the reader. For an example of a comma splice, I have the following sentence. Students find writing difficult. They avoid it whenever possible. As with run-ons, look for the subjects and verbs. Like the run-on example, this sentence has two distinct subjects, students and they, and two distinct verbs, find and avoid. Therefore, the comma attempting to join the two clauses is not strong enough. To correct the error, you can simply add a conjunction, like so, or you can replace the comma with a period or semicolon. A semicolon plus a transition is also a possibility, but it should be used sparingly. Most students are aware of fragments, but there are ways in which fragments still appear in student writing. A fragment is an incomplete sentence. It is missing one of the three components that makes a sentence complete: a subject, a verb, and/or a self-contained idea. That is, the sentence does not need any other sentences to be understood by the reader. Correcting a fragment requires recognizing what is missing from a sentence and adding the missing element. For the most part, first-year composition students create what are called dependent clause fragments. Take, for instance, the example on this slide. Students will procrastinate writing projects when they struggle with writing. While it's difficult to hear the difference when I'm reading aloud, please note there is a period between projects and when. The second sentence, when they struggle with writing, seems like it's correct. It has a subject, it has a verb, and when combined with the first sentence, it makes sense in context. However, the period suggests that the second clause can stand on its own as a complete sentence. Remove the first sentence, and the second leaves the reader in suspense, waiting for the idea to be completed. The subordinating conjunction when is the culprit here. Subordinating conjunctions create dependent clauses, which are clauses that need an independent clause to be complete. These dependent clause fragments are typically created because students are worried about creating a run-on and so finish the sentence before it has expressed its idea. To correct the sentence, simply join the two clauses together. I have two versions of the corrected sentence here. In the first correction, I have removed the period and simply joined the sentences together. Since the subordinating conjunction already links the two clauses together, there is no need for a comma. The second correction reverses the order of the clauses. Please note that when a sentence starts with a subordinating conjunction, there needs to be a comma between the two clauses. Thank you for watching, and please let me know if you have any questions.